Hey guys, hope everyone's had a good week. Today we're going to be running through why you're not losing fat even though you're trying. So it's going to be a 30-minute live where I'm going to be running through a couple of key topics of why you're not losing weight even though you're trying. So if you guys have been consistent with the gym at the moment for the last few weeks, even the last few months, and you're not seeing the results that you want in terms of fat loss, then you could potentially be making some of these mistakes in terms of what I'm going to be sharing with you today. If you guys feel like you're eating pretty good and working out, but nothing is changing, then this live is for you. This is all going to be around why you're not losing fat even though you're trying. So, in terms of setting an agenda for the 30-minute live, all based around why you're not losing fat, I'm firstly going to do an introduction in terms of the live, in terms of key topics. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, even though I've been running a few of these lives at the moment. I'm going to just do a little bit of an introduction about myself. I'm then going to start talking about some fat loss, myth busting topics. Firstly, then going to talk about the main reasons of why fat loss stalls. Then moving into the plateau illusion, what actually works, common self-sabotage, and then around 7 p.m., we're then going to close up the session. Feel free, guys, if you've got any questions whilst we're running through the session, please engage, please ask questions as we're running through, as look, I really want to help you guys as much as what I can. I've got an agenda today, but if you guys have got any questions, then feel free to drop them in the chat, DM me afterwards. I'm more than happy to help you guys. You know, from my side, in terms of a welcome, really want to make sure that you guys are achieving your fitness goals for 2026. If you guys haven't seen me before, my name is Ross. I've been training for over a decade. So I've got a lot of passion when it comes to the gym, health and fitness in general. And it's my pleasure coming on here on a Friday evening and sharing my knowledge and trying to give you guys the best advice to achieve your goals. So for anyone that is joining the live a little bit late, in terms of what we're going to be running through today is why you are not losing fat even though you're trying. So if you feel like you're eating pretty good and you're working out consistently, maybe since the start of January, maybe even a few months before that, but nothing's changing, then this live is for you. So generally when it comes to fat loss, you know, you're not broken. Usually the strategy that you're attacking it with, or the ones that you're executing week to week, is generally what the problem is. So what I'm going to be talking about in terms of setting a bit of expectations is this is not going to be any gimmicks, no supplements or no extremes. So doesn't matter in terms of your ability, your fitness level, where you're currently at. You know, generally there's going to be no extremes here. So it's going to be suiting everybody's ability in terms of achieving that goal. So firstly, what we're going to be running through is myth busting. So in terms of what a lot of people are moving into is, look, I'm eating healthy at the moment, but they haven't really got a control on their calories. When people say that they're eating healthy, but they're not tracking their calories, and to be honest with you, I know tracking your calories can be actually quite boring, but if you want to really nail down fat loss, you need to really think to yourself, where am I going wrong? I'm doing all these workouts, I feel like I'm eating healthy, but if you don't actually have a full view in terms of the calories that you're having day to day, then you're going in blind. And usually when you're going in blind, although you may be eating healthy, it's very easy to overeat. And if we're in a job where we're like we've got a desk job, then you know we're not really moving a lot throughout the week. So generally for us, it's really important to know the calories that you're having day to day. In terms of other myth busters, the more workouts doesn't necessarily mean more fat loss. It all comes back to what I've just mentioned around the calories. If you are still overeating your calories every day, then generally you're not going to get fat loss. You can do a workout 3, 4, 5 days a week, but if you are not eating in a consistent calorie deficit, you can't outtrain a bad diet. Also, as well, if you're sweating loads, that doesn't mean that you're fat burning. It's all you've got to tie it towards basically a heart rate zone. So you've got to be in zone 2 in terms of fat burning. And then this is going to be the last myth buster, which is all around how much I weigh on the scales. That doesn't directly link back to progress. We've all got different bodies. We've all got different setups. The best way that you can judge yourself is not by the weight on the scales, but actually how you look in the mirror. So super, super important. So guys, any questions as we're running through, please put them in the chat. More than happy to answer them as we go along. So just to tie up the myth busting is most people aren't failing. They're just measuring things wrong. And this is why it always comes back to you're doing your workouts, you're eating well, but you need to make sure that you are tracking your calories. And if you don't know how to track your calories, then you just need to go online to a TDE calculator. So you can put that into Google, fill out your information. So your height, weight, your activity level, be honest. There's no point lying. And then it will give you your rough maintenance calories in terms of what you need to have day to day. Then you generally, if you want to be in fat loss, you need to be around 200 to 250 calories underneath that maintenance level. And you need to be doing it consistently. So super, super important. So the real reason for fat loss is mainly all based around what I've just touched upon. You're not in a calorie deficit. If you are losing weight and then you've stopped losing weight, the main reason why that's stalled, or the main reason why you haven't lost weight at all, is because you're not actually in a calorie deficit. So this could be down to having liquid calories, weekend eating. Like, I know it's a Friday night. We all just want to get a bit of a takeaway. We've been eating well in the week, but it's really important to have a bit of structure. And if you are going to have a takeaway on a Friday night, that's not bad. And to be fair, like, I'm probably going to get a Turkish after this, but I'm going to factor that in terms of how I'm going to break it down in terms of my calories over the weekend. If I have maybe a bigger calorie dense meal, let's say this evening, then over the weekend or today, I've actually been eating a lot less to basically make up for those numbers and make sure that I'm not massively overeating and having a big lunch, a big breakfast and a takeaway for dinner. So it's all about balance. But really important to weekend eating is really crucial, because a lot of people will eat healthy in the week and then they'll fall off over the weekends. They go out, they'll pretty much eat badly all weekend, and then it'll blow all of their progress out. Remember, in terms of fat loss, it is all about being consistent. If you are in a consistent calorie deficit, then you will lose weight. It doesn't matter how much cardio that you do, how many times that you go to the gym, how many workouts that you do. If you are not in a consistent calorie deficit, then you will not lose weight. So it doesn't matter about cardio. For me, I like running, but I could actually lose weight without actually doing any cardio whatsoever. So it's super, super important. The calorie deficit is the key to all of this, and making sure that you don't overeat on the weekends. Also as well, which the main reasons of why potential fat loss stalls or you're not losing any fat at the moment is because of your portions. You might be eating 2 to 3 times a day, but if you're eating big portions, and again, this is not going back to, I know it sounds really boring, I don't like banging on about it, but if you are not tracking your calories, then generally you're going blind. And if you're having big portions on top of that, sometimes people don't realize how many calories are in, even like a medium-sized portion, right? So super, super important that the portion control is on point. And that always ties back to how many calories that you're having each day, having visibility of that, and making sure that you've got the full 360-degree view. So next reason, the real reasons of why fat loss stalls is you're under eating during the week. So again, I lent on that a little bit earlier on when we're talking about healthy eating. Then once you get to the weekend, because you've been super restrictive during the week, you just have a massive blowout. You get a packet of biscuits, you get crisps, you get a takeaway, you drink, whatever it is, you just blow out in terms of just eating crazy. And to be honest with you, the weekend damage, it's hard to recover from if you're not in a calorie deficit. So super, super important to make sure that you have balance throughout the week. 80-20 rule with the nutrition. 80% of the week you're going to be eating well. The 20% doesn't mean that you're going to be going to KFC, McDonald's, and Burger King on 3 separate days on the weekend. It is all about having a small treat, but you're still in those guidelines of eating something healthy every day. So super, super important. So guys, if you've got any questions whilst I'm running through, please put them in the chat. In terms of what we've run through so far, I've done a welcome. I then run through some myth busting things around I'm eating healthy, but not understanding your calories. More workouts doesn't mean more fat loss if you don't know how many calories that you're having each day. If you're sweating more during your workouts, that doesn't mean that fat is burning. And you shouldn't be looking at the scale and thinking to yourself, tying your progress and tying your happiness to a number on a scale, because we are all built differently. We're all different heights, shapes, sizes. So super, super important not to get tied to the weight on the scale, but to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, do you like what you see? And if you don't, goes back to the calorie control, being in a consistent calorie deficit from your maintenance level. If you don't know how to do that, you go online to a TDEE calculator, go onto Google, calorie calculator, you fill out your information, and then it tells you then how many calories you have each day. You can then use MyFitnessPal to scan the barcodes. I know that sounds proper boring, but it's good to do it at the start because then you roughly know how many calories that you're having each day. So then we moved into the real reason why fat loss stalls, or you haven't had any fat loss altogether. And that mainly comes down to you're not actually in a calorie deficit. So you could be eating healthy foods, but if you are not in a consistent calorie deficit, then you're not going to lose weight. Weekend eating, so we went back to that in terms of you're potentially under eating in the week and then having a blowout on the weekend. You've got to be super conscious about your portion control. And yeah, it's all about balance. Like I said, 80% in the week is healthy eating. 20% on the weekends is having a little bit of a snack. But like I said, you're not going to KFC, McDonald's and Burger King back to back and then thinking, I've gone gym or I've had some healthy food in the week, but I'm still not losing weight. So super, super important to highlight those things that, the weekend, if you have a massive blowout, it's just going to blow out all of your progress from the week. So any questions, guys, let me know. We've got just over 15 minutes left of this live. So moving on to some other reasons of why fat loss stalls is stress and sleep. So if you're not sleeping enough, and again, I've spoken about this in other lives, if you're not sleeping between 7 and 8 hours of sleep every night, then cortisol, cravings, water retention, stress, this all leads back to the main reasons of why this is going to stall progress in terms of your fat loss. If you are not getting enough sleep, you're going to get sleep deprived, you're then going to get miserable, and then you're going to tuck into a bucket of KFC. You can't be doing that. You've got to be thinking to yourself, I'm not a robot, but I need to make sure that I get into bed at a reasonable time, get my 7 to 8 hours of sleep, I feel refreshed for the day, and then you feel like you can attack the day. When you feel tired, then you just feel like, well, do you know what? I can't be bothered today. And that's not the way it should be. It is all about consistency and, treating your body with as much care as possible. And that is through the sleep. So next thing that I'm going to be moving into is the plateau illusion. So we're going to be talking about, obviously, training. When you're training, you're exercising, your body gets inflamed from training. So generally, you've got things like hormone cycles. You've also got water weight as well if you're drinking loads of water. So you've got to take these things into account in terms of your actual fat loss. So fat loss happens in the background. The scale, and this is why it's super, super important not to get too tied to the weight, to the number on the scale, is the scales reports back late. So super important to track everything in the initial stage, especially when it comes to fat loss, because those minor details are super, super important. So how much water you're having each day, how much you're sleeping, in terms of the calories that you're having each day, what foods are you having, even journal how you're feeling. These are all going to lead back to why you're not losing fat or why you've potentially stalled and what you can do about it. So also as well, when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, when you put your clothes on, this is also a good way to track progress, is thinking about the fit of your clothes. You can even get a measuring tape and just measure your body. I'm not talking about every week, but every maybe 6 to 8 weeks. Don't get too obsessed with it. That is more of a healthy way to track progress and make sure that you're on the right path. So in terms of what I want to run through next is what actually works when it comes to fat loss. So these are going to be some simple, non-sexy rules. So again, what actually works when it comes to fat loss? These are going to be simple, non-sexy rules. So firstly, you need to make sure that you have a good source of protein with each meal. I'm not saying that it needs to be chicken every single meal, but you can have a selection of proteins that you can rotate throughout the week. We don't like eating the same food. Well, to be honest with you, I eat the same food every day, pretty much, well, Monday to Friday. I don't really like cooking, but we'll get into that another day. But generally, you should be having a good source of protein with each meal. Don't be like me, don't have the same foods every day, or for the majority of the week, but make sure that you get a good source of protein with every meal. Next thing is make sure that you strength train at least 2 to 3 days per week consistently. And I'm not saying go into the gym and speak to Brian or Susie who are doing cardio. I'm talking about going to the gym and properly having the right intensity, being in there for an hour, being strict with your rest times, making sure that you're fully pushing yourself. Because in order for your body to grow and to get into that fat loss state, you've got to really make sure that you're driving hard effort. Your body's not going to change if you're just like, well, I'm going to go through the motions. I'm going to see what Tom's saying on the cardio machine, and then I'm going to just have a little coffee in the cafe area. You need to think to yourself, right, I've got an hour to go to the gym. I really need to push my body, and at least make sure that you're getting 2 to 3 days per week of strength training. This is another big one in terms of what actually works. Steps matter more than cardio. So I've spoken about this many a time on other lives and across my videos. You need to be doing 10,000 steps a day minimum. And I'm not saying you need to go out and walk around the streets for 2.5 hours, but you can easily break this up throughout the day. You can go out for a morning walk if you're on the phone and walk around the block. Even a 10, 15, 20-minute walk, that is like 2,500 steps. You then go out for another walk at lunch. If you're in the office or if you're working remote, go out for another walk after you've eaten your lunch. And then in the evenings, once you've had your dinner, again, go out for another 15 to 20-minute walk. These small sessions will accumulate into 10,000 steps. You are better off doing 10,000 steps a day than just literally going to the gym, doing your cardio for an hour once, twice, or 3 days a week, and then being like, like you're pretty much not getting any other steps in apart from that. So super, super important to make sure that you're getting your 10,000 steps a day consistently. That matters more than cardio. Strength train at least 2 to 3 days per week. Make sure that you prioritize a good source of protein with each meal. Next, consistency beats intensity. So to be honest with you, over the last 3 weeks, I haven't been able to go to the gym as much as I want. One side of the things is it's super busy. So when I go down there, it's pretty much like a WWE match trying to get on a machine. So I've been doing a lot of small workouts at home. I've been doing a bodyweight workout. I've got a pull-up bar here. I've got a weighted vest, and I've been doing short 15 to 20 minute workouts, but I'm being consistent, and consistency beats intensity. If you can't go to the gym one week and you can't go to the gym for an hour, but you can go for half an hour, you're better off going for 30 minutes instead of not going at all. So super, super important to be flexible. We know that life happens. It's already nearly the end of January, and sometimes we can't be perfect. I haven't been perfect over January. I can either sit here and think to myself, well, I can't go to the gym, so I'm going to do nothing, or I'm going to try and actually do what I'm actually going to try and do is actually stay consistent, and I'm actually going to do what I can, which is a 15-20 minute workout. It's not perfect, but consistency beats intensity. If you train consistently over the week, 15 to 20 minutes, 30-minute sessions, and you're doing that for 3 days a week, but you do it for the whole year, you will beat someone who is going to the gym 4 days a week, 5 days a week, then drops off for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So super important, consistency beats intensity. And the last thing in terms of what actually works is make sure that your calories are around the same intake on weekends and weekdays. So if you're going to have a takeaway tonight or over the weekend, work out roughly how many calories that is. I'm not saying phone up the takeaway and say to them how many calories is in this, but you can generally work it out, right? In terms of what the calories are. And if you're having, let's say, 1,000 calories in one meal, make sure that your other meals that you're having throughout the day basically will consider what you've had in terms of those 1,000 calories. Maybe have smaller portions throughout the day if you're going to have a takeaway. It's all about balance. It's not about eating like 24/7 well, and you're thinking to yourself, well, I can never have a takeaway. You can have a takeaway, but just make sure that you factor those calories into other meals that you're having throughout the day. So just to confirm in terms of what actually works when it comes to fat loss, simple, non-sexy rules is protein at every meal, strength training at least 2 to 3 days a week, steps matter more than cardio, consistency beats intensity, and make sure that you're aiming to have the same calories on weekdays and on the weekends. Any questions, guys? Let me know. Feel free. I'm more than happy to help as I'm running through. I'm getting a bit carried away sometimes. But the one thing that you need to think about is boring works. When it comes to getting in shape, fat loss, whatever it is, you don't need to think about some super sexy plan. Boring works, chaos doesn't. So super, super important. So I've got around just over 5 minutes left of the live. Any questions, guys, please let me know in terms of anything that I can help with. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is common self-sabotage. So as human beings, we are super impatient, but we need to think to ourselves, right, what are some of the positive things that I can say to myself week to week and day to day? It is hard it's hard when you're in a calorie deficit. It's hard when you're trying to lose weight. It's hard when you're trying to target fat loss. But what you need to do is you firstly need to make sure that you're not program hopping. If you are program hopping every week, every month, then you are not going to see the results that you want, because you need to make sure that you are tracking your progress consistently. And the easiest way to track your progress is to stay on one program for a consistent period of time. If you are looking to lose weight, try and stay on the same program, or you should stay on the same program for at least 12 to 16 weeks. I know that sounds pretty long, but it's a great way to track progress. Make sure as well that you're not, again, I touched upon this, you're under eating in the week and then you're overeating on the weekends. Again, it's all about balance. We don't want to restrict ourselves so much that suddenly then we just get a KFC bargain bucket on Friday after you've eaten well all week. Think about what are some of the sustainable habits that I can implement day to day and week to week. So this also goes back into the other point. So over restricting foods that you can't live without. If you like chocolate, if you like crisps, if you like whatever it is, you don't have to cut it out. It's all about balance. You can't have it every day, but you can have it some days. So it's a balance between the two, right? If you think to yourself, I can never ever eat chocolate, then it's going to get to a point where you're just going to be like, oh, do you know what? I can't deal with this. You probably have a bad night's sleep. It's cold, it's wet, it's windy, especially in the UK. Then you're going to say to yourself, do you know what? Just go and get me some chocolate from the newsagents. Let me delve into that. And then before you know it, you've had 101 cream eggs. So super, super important that you don't over restrict the foods that you can't live without. And this is a real big one. Expecting linear progress. When it comes to seeing results in the gym, it doesn't go like this. It goes like this, because some weeks we feel good, we feel bad, we have a good workout, we have a bad workout, we have a good day, we have a bad day. Most important thing that shows up is all around consistency. If you are consistent, remember, consistency beats intensity. So just in terms of covering that, self-sabotage is around program hopping. Don't program hop. Don't undereat then overeat. Don't over restrict the foods that you can't live without, and don't expect linear progress. Stay consistent, stay in there, and I promise you the results will come. If you can't do it for 12 to 16 weeks in terms of this fat loss phase, you've got to be patient. This is not a plan that you're attacking. It's just a phase. So just in terms of a summary of what I've run through today, before I run through that, if you guys have got any other questions, please let me know. Always happy to help. If you guys don't want to share it in the comments now, feel free to DM me afterwards. I'd be more than happy to help you guys. But in terms of a close for today's session, fat loss is not a skill. Fat loss is a skill. It's not a willpower. So you need to attack it strategically. You need to think about, what calories am I having each day? Am I doing my 10,000 steps a day? Am I working out consistently? If you cover all those key things, super, super important. Also as well, calories. Do I know how many calories I'm having each day? If I'm having a bit of naughty food on the weekend, am I then thinking about the other meals that I've got to have throughout the day? Am I thinking, if I've had a 1,000 calorie lunch, what are the rough calories that I need to have for my dinner, right? So super, super important. You don't need more motivation. You just need a better system. So that comes back to being super, super strategic. So nothing is wrong with you guys. This is the thing that I wanted to end on. Nothing is wrong with you. You just haven't been shown the full picture. So I hope you guys have found this session helpful. Really enjoyed jumping on here on Friday evening and sharing some of this knowledge with you guys in terms of why you're not losing fat. If you guys have got any other questions, feel free to DM me afterwards. I'm always happy to help you guys. I'm always on hand. Have a good evening, and I shall speak to you guys over the weekend. My next live is out soon. If you guys want to take a look at that, Stay posted, and then I'll speak to you guys soon. Thanks very much, and bye-bye.